Her one mistake wasn't the stolen jewelry in her bag. It was saying Annyeonghaseyo in the dialect of a city she'd never seen to a man who owned it. And in that moment the monster from my past finally saw me. You think you know a story about a rich man and a maid? You don't. This is about a ghost. My ghost. And how, after 10 years of running, of hiding in plain sight in the spotless uniforms of the obscenely wealthy, the past doesn't find you with a gun. Defines you with a single, perfect, unforgivable word. My name is Lee Ji-won. But for the last 10 years in the marble halls of the Cheongdam-dong elite, I've been Park Mina. The quiet one. The efficient one. The invisible one. The shy black maid. I worked for the Yu family. Old money. Ancient money. Patriarch Yu Jae-suk, 78, is a billionaire who made his first fortune in shipbuilding in Busan before anyone knew what a chaebol was. His son Yu Kong-min is in his early 40s. The heir. The problem. Kong-min wasn't just a playboy. He was the nexus. The perfectly tailored bridge between his father's legitimate empire and the shadow economy run by the Jeomjang Syndicate, the Korean Mafia. Their base. Busan. Their language. The thick, guttural, unmistakable dialect of the port city. My survival depended on two things. My utter silence and my flawless, neutral soul accent. I scrubbed, I polished, I kept my eyes on the floors and I mopped. I became a piece of the furniture. A ghost in a black and white uniform. The night it happened was the elder Yu's birthday gala. 100 of Korea's most powerful under one crystal chandeliered roof. My job was to circulate with the hors d'oeuvres, a silent vessel for champagne and caviar. I saw Kong-min across the room, holding court with men whose smiles didn't reach their eyes. Men with tattoos peeking from cuffs, speaking in low, rumbling Busan accents. My blood went cold. Kept my head down. Then Yu Jae-suk himself, the billionaire dad, detached from the group and walked towards me. He was a monument. A cliff face in a brioni suit. He reached for a crystal flute from my tray. Instinct is a bastard. A decade of training, of silence, vaporized by a primal, stupid nerve. He nodded a cursory courtesy. And my mouth, my traitorous mouth, opened. Annyeonghaseyo. It was polite. It was perfect. But it wasn't Seoul. It was pure, unadulterated Busan. The shipshio ending, the slight downward push on the vowels. The ghost of the docks in 2 syllables. The flute froze midway to his lips. His eyes, sharp as flint, locked onto mine. Not through me. Me. Around him, a pocket of silence spread. A diplomat to his left stopped talking. Kong-min from across the room went still. His gaze, a laser, cut through the crowd and pinned me to the spot. The air was sucked out of the room. In that frozen eternity, I saw my own death in Yu Jae-suk's face. Not anger. Curiosity. The cold, dissecting curiosity of a man who'd just found a unique insect on his pristine linen. He took the flute. His voice, when it came, was a low, Busan-tinged rumble just for me. You have the tongue of my hometown girl. But not the face. Interesting. He walked away. The party noise rushed back in a deafening wave. But the damage was done. A fracture line had shot through my carefully constructed world. And on the other side of the room, Kong-min was already on the move, whispering to one of his stone-faced associates, his eyes never leaving me. The hunter had caught a scent. The uniform was my armor for 10 years. It just became my shroud. One word. That's all it takes. What's the one word that would unravel your life? What do you do when the walls you've built start listening back? I finished my shift in a blur of automated motion. My hands trembled as I polished already spotless silver. Every echo in the service hallway was a footstep coming for me. I clocked out, the electronic beep sounding like a cell door slamming. My room was a 6 by 8 concrete box in the staff quarters behind the main estate. A cot, a sink, a single locked drawer. Home. I closed the door, leaned against it, and tried to breathe. Stupid. So stupid. 10 years of flawless discipline shattered because an old man looked at me. The ghost inside me, the one named Ji-won, had stirred. And she'd spoken. A soft knock at the door. Not the housekeeper's rap. Something softer. Precise. I didn't move. Mina. A woman's voice. Young. Sujin, the head housemaid. Kungmin Sejangnam wants to see you. In his private study. Now. The Sejangnam. The boss. Not the father. The son. This was it. Not firing. In this world you don't get fired for curiosity. You disappeared. I'm changing. 2 minutes. He said now. The command was a steel thread in her voice. I opened the door. Sujin's face was a polite mask, but her eyes were wide, flickering with fear. For me, or for the trouble I brought. She led me through the back corridors, past the kitchen where the night staff averted their eyes. We took the service elevator to the 3rd floor. The family wing. Thick carpet swallowed our footsteps. The air smelled of lemongrass polish and old money. Kongmin's private study wasn't for books. It was a sleek, modern command center overlooking the neon skyline of Seoul. Glass, titanium, a single brutalist painting. He stood by the window, his back to me, a crystal tumbler in hand. Close the door, he said without turning. Sujin vanished. The door clicked shut. A lock engaged with a quiet hydraulic hiss. He turned. Kongmin was handsome in a way that felt like a threat. Sharp cheekbones, a smile that never warmed his eyes. He looked me up and down, not as a woman, but as an object of sudden, inconvenient interest. Park Mina, he said, rolling the name on his tongue like he was tasting a fake ingredient. 5 years of service. Impeccable records. Quiet. Unnoticed. He took a slow sip of his drink. Until tonight. I apologize, Sejangnam. It was a slip of the tongue. My grandmother was from Busan. I must have. Stop. The word was a whip crack. He placed his glass down with surgical care. My father is a romantic. He hears a voice from his youth and he gets nostalgic. He thinks perhaps you are a charming coincidence. He took a step closer. I could smell his cologne, oud and ice. I am not a romantic. I am a realist. Coincidences are weaknesses waiting to be exploited. Who are you? I am Park Mina Sejangnam. A Busan orphan raised in Seoul? A pure dialect doesn't come from a grandmother you see on holidays. Comes from the streets. The docks. His eyes narrowed. It comes from people who have reasons to hide. My heart was a frantic bird against my ribs. Don't flinch. Don't look at the locked drawer in your mind. I have nothing to hide. He smiled then. A cold, terrifying thing. He walked to his desk and tapped a key on a laptop. A security feed popped up. Not from tonight. From 3 days ago. It showed me in the library, dusting. The camera angle was high, tight on my hands as I gently, reverently, straightened a framed photograph on the shelf. An old black and white shot of the Busan shipyards. You looked at that photo for 12 seconds, Kongmin murmured. Not with curiosity. With recognition. With grief. I said nothing. The walls were closing in. You will continue your duties, he said, his decision made. But tomorrow, you are assigned to personal detail for my father's new project. He's taken an interest in you. I have taken an interest in why. He picked up a file from his desk and held it out. I took it. His schedule. His medications. His routines. You will be his shadow. And I will be yours. He finally looked at me and the full predatory force of his attention was crushing. Everything you do, everywhere you go, and everyone you speak to will be known to me. Clear the air. Or confirm my suspicions. I nodded, my throat sealed shut. Dismissed. I turned, my legs numb. As my hand touched the door handle, his voice came again, soft and lethal. And Mina? The Jiamzhang syndicate controlled every pier, every fish market, and every orphanage in Busan from 1970 to today. If you are a ghost from there, we are experts in making ghosts talk. I walked out. The hallway seemed to stretch for miles. The file in my hand wasn't paper. It was a verdict. And a countdown clock. He'd given me a rope. To hang myself or to hang on. The game had begun. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in psychological warfare. I became Yu Jae-suk's shadow. I served him tea, Earl Grey, 1 sugar, at 3:15 p.m. precisely. I laid out his reading glasses and the day's financial briefs. I adjusted the thermostat to his exacting 21.5 degrees Celsius. The old man was a fortress of routine. He rarely spoke to me directly, but his eyes followed. Studying. That initial spark of curiosity had banked into a slow, smoldering coal. The humidity today, he mused once, not looking up from his ledger. It's like a Busan spring. The fog rolled off the harbor. You can taste the salt. Yes. I remained silent, offering a slight bow of acknowledgement. Silence is also an answer, girl, he said, and returned to his work. Kongmin's surveillance was less subtle. Sujin, the head maid, was clearly his creature now, her reports written in the fear flicker of her eyes whenever we passed. A sleek black sedan, always the same one, appeared 2 car lengths behind whenever I was permitted my afternoon errand to the market. My tiny room. I felt violated. Nothing was moving, but the air was different. Still. Watched. The pressure was a vice. I slept in fits, dreaming of the docks, of the sound of water lapping against pilings, and of a woman's voice screaming my real name. My past was a locked drawer. Inside it, a photo of my mother, her smile bright against the gray Busan skyline, and a rusted key on a string. The key to a shipping container that hadn't moved in a decade. The container where my father, a dock foreman who saw a Jiamzhang syndicate cocaine offload, which he shouldn't have, was turned into a ghost. Where my mother went asking questions and became one herself. I was 16. I became Jiwon the ghost. I kept the key. A stupid, sentimental anchor. And now it was a death warrant. The crack came on the second night. Yu Jae-suk had retired. I was in the downstairs pantry inventorying the wine cellar. The lights were low. I heard the smooth whisper of the kitchen door and saw the silhouette, broad and suited. Not Kongmin. One of his stone men. The one they called Tae-suk. Hands like cured ham, a neck tattoo peeking above his collar. He didn't look at me. He went straight to the large restaurant-grade refrigerator. He opened it, moved a crate of mineral water, and retrieved a sealed, vacuum-packed brick. Pale powdery. He slotted it into a false panel in the fridge door. A routine drop. This was how it worked. The legitimate house and the illegitimate business flow through the same veins. He closed the fridge and turned. His eyes met mine. I was a statue, a clipboard in my hand. He walked towards me, not around. Stopped close enough for me to smell garlic and gun oil. You see good, he grunted in thick Busan dialect. I see nothing, Sien Sengnam, I whispered, my eyes on the floor. He lifted a calloused finger, hooked it under my chin, and forced my head up. His gaze was empty. A shark's. The boss's son, he wonders about you. I wonder too. Busan girls are strong. Tough. You are a mouse. He leaned closer. Maybe a mouse who chewed the wrong wires in another life. He released me with a slight shove that felt like a promise. Remember nothing. See nothing, or you become nothing. He left. The kitchen door swung silently behind him. I stood there, the cold from the fridge leaching into my bones. This wasn't just surveillance. They were integrating me into the crime scene, making me a witness to a felony. It was leverage. Now, if I talked, I was complicit. The smoke was everywhere, and the lies I'd built my life on were beginning to char at the edges. They're weaving you into their crime, making you part of the evidence. Would you run now, knowing they've already framed you for what's in that fridge? Or do you dig in and find a bigger piece of the truth to burn them with? Comment below. Paranoia is a fungus. It grows in the dark, damp places of your mind. After the encounter with Tae-suk, every reflection in polished silver, every whisper of the house's climate control, felt like a held breath. I was a fly who'd seen the spider's fangs. Now I see the web everywhere. My assignment to you, Jae-suk, became my only fragile shield. The old man was a labyrinth. He'd spend hours in his glass-walled conservatory, tending to orchids with a surgeon's care. One afternoon, as I poured his tea, he spoke without prompting. They think I am sentimental. An old lion, toothless, dreaming of the old territory. His voice was a dry rustle. He is a hammer. He sees a nail. He sees a loose thread. He pulls it. He finally looked at me, his eyes clouded with cataracts and cunning. Are you a loose thread, Park Mina? The use of my false name was deliberate. A reminder. I serve the house, Sajangnam. I said, the standard deflection. Serve. An interesting word. We all serve something. My son serves his ambition. The men in the black cars serve their fear. What does a quiet girl from Busan serve? He sipped his tea. Perhaps a memory. My blood went still. A memory. He set the cup down. There was a foreman. On Pier 7. Honest man. I saw something. The syndicate does not like honest eyes. He watched me. I gave him nothing, but my soul was screaming. He had a daughter. She vanished the night they fed him to the harbor crabs, the mother too. A tragedy. He was telling me he knew, or suspected enough to probe the wound. The world is full of tragedies, Sajangnam, I forced out. It is. But some tragedies leave ghosts. And ghosts, they have a way of drifting back to the place they died. He picked up his pruning shears and turned to a delicate white orchid. Especially if they have unfinished business. A key, for instance. The world tilted. The key. The rusted key is in my locked drawer. He knew Kongmin's men had searched my room. They'd found it. They'd shown it to him. This wasn't a test. This was a confession. From the king to the ghost. He was telling me my cover was ash, and he was watching to see if I'd run or fight or beg. What does one do with a key to a lock that no longer exists? I whispered, playing the metaphor. He snipped a dead bloom. It fell silently to the soil. One waits for the right moment to see what is still locked inside. He looked at me, his gaze sharpening. My son's men are watching the old container yard. Pier 7. They watch it every night. A waste of resources, I told him. Ghosts don't use keys. It was a warning. And a weapon. He just told me about Kongmin's play. They'd found the key, traced its purpose, and were waiting for me to lead them to whatever my father had hidden. Evidence, money, a secret, so they could bury it and me together. The noose wasn't just around my neck. It was around my past, my last truth. I left the conservatory, my composure hanging by a thread. Kongmin was in the main hall, talking on his phone. He saw me and ended the call. Mina, my father's anecdotes are not too tiresome, I hope. He is a wise man. I said, keeping my eyes lowered. Wisdom is a luxury of the old. The present requires action. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. A piece of business tonight. On the waterfront. Some of our associates will be handling it. You will accompany Sujin. She is delivering a care package to the crew. You will assist. It was an order. A command performance. To the very place they knew my ghost lived. Pier 7. To see if I'd flinch. To see if I'd run. Or to disappear to where my parents disappeared. The noose tightened. The choice was gone. The black sedan didn't follow us. It led us. Sujin drove a nondescript van, her knuckles white on the wheel. I sat in the passenger seat, a cold takeout box on my lap. The care package. Dumplings. It was always so banal, the props of evil. You shouldn't have spoken, Sujin hissed, her eyes fixed on the sedan's taillights ahead. You brought this on yourself. On all of us. You know what they're doing, I said, my voice flat. I know my job is to keep my head down and get paid. You forgot yours. She shot me a glance filled with genuine, terrorized anger. Now we're going to the docks at night. With them. The city's glittering spine fell away, replaced by the skeletal silhouettes of cranes and the vast, dark belly of the port. The smell hit, salt, rust, rotting fish and diesel. The smell of my childhood. The smell of my father's last breath. We turned onto Pier 7. It was derelict, slated for redevelopment. Corroded shipping containers were stacked like tombstones. The sedan stopped. Tae-suk and another enforcer got out. A third man stood by a container, its doors slightly ajar, a slash of deeper black. Sujin parked. Take it to them, she whispered, not looking at me. My legs were wet. I got out, the night air clammy on my skin. The only sounds were the distant groan of a ship's horn and the water slapping against the pilings below. I walked toward the three men holding the box. Tae-suk watched me, a cigarette ember glowing in the dark. Over here, he said, nodding to the open container. Put it inside. The container. My feet were rooted to the cracked asphalt. My eyes darted to the stacked metal boxes around us. My father's container was here. Somewhere in this graveyard. Was this it? Was his dust still inside? Move, the other enforcer growled. I walked forward, each step an act of treason against my own survival. I reached the opening. The interior was pitch black, smelling of stale metal and something sour. I placed the box just inside the threshold. As I straightened, a powerful flashlight beam hit me in the eyes, blinding me. You know this place, Kongmin's voice said from the darkness to my left. He stepped into the edge of the light. He wasn't in the sedan. He'd been here waiting. Your pulse is in your throat. I can see it from here. I said nothing, shielding my eyes. The key you keep, he continued conversationally. It's for a container on this pier. We matched it. CSM 4417. Your father's workplace. His tomb. He took a step closer. What did he put inside, Mina? Or do you prefer G1? Hearing my name, my real name, in his mouth was a violation worse than a blow. I don't know what you're talking about. Loyalty to a dead man. Admirable. Stupid. He gestured to Tae-suk. Open it. Tae-suk and the other man moved to a container 3 stacks over. With a metallic shriek, they pried the doors open. Kongmin's flashlight beam swung to it, cutting through the gloom. My heart stopped. CSM 4417. They dragged out 2 heavy industrial-grade plastic drums. They pried off a lid. Kongmin shone the light inside. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't money. It was a document. Water-stained ledgers. Moldering notebooks. And on top, a sealed evidence bag containing a single old-model digital voice recorder. My father's theory, Kongmin said, almost amused. He thought the foreman was a hero, gathering evidence, a whistleblower. He picked up the evidence bag and looked at the recorder. Pathetic. This is the unfinished business? A dead man's diary. He tossed the bag to Taesuk. Destroy it, burn the lot. No. The word tore from me raw and desperate. Kongmin's beam snapped back to me. Ah, there she is. The ghost has a voice. His smile vanished. You led us right to it. Thank you for that. Now the question is, what to do with the ghost who's outlived her purpose? Taesuk pulled a lighter from his pocket, gesturing to the drums. This was it. The last truth of my parents, their reason for dying, is about to turn to ash. And I was next. The false shelter of my identity was gone. The script had ended. It was time to break the scene. Time didn't slow. It crystallized. The flicker of the lighter in Taesuk's hand. The hungry, dry scent of impending fire. Kongmin's triumphant, hollow gaze. The cold weight of the past in those plastic drums. My parents didn't die from a pathetic diary. They died for a truth that could burn empires. And I had carried that key, not as a sentimental anchor, but as a silent, screaming promise. I didn't charge at Taesuk. I didn't beg Kongmin. I looked past him into the shadows where the third enforcer stood, and I spoke. Not in the Seoul accent. Not in the careful Busan dialect. I used the rough, clipped slang of the Pier 7 gutters. The language of the dock rats and the night shift orphans. Hyungnim, I said, the term achingly familiar, disrespectfully intimate. The recorder. You really want to burn it before you hear what the foreman says about the second offload? The one with the customs agent's daughter. The third enforcer, a man with a scar bisecting his eyebrow, stiffened. Kongmin's head whipped towards him. It was a shot in the dark. A gamble built on a decade-old whisper my father had let slip before he died. They own the docks, but the docks have ears. Even the snakes turn on each other. Scarbrow's reaction was micro, a twitch under his eye. But it was there. I'd hit a nerve. A secret within the secret. What is she talking about? Kongmin's voice was deadly quiet. She's babbling. Trying to save her skin, Taesuk snarled, but he didn't flick the lighter. The foreman saw everything. I pressed, my voice gaining strength, aiming my words like darts at the shadowed man. Including who really took the girl. Was it worth your cut, Hyungnim? Does the boss know you played your own side? Shut her mouth. Scarbrow snapped, his hand going inside his jacket. Chaos is a ladder. In that splinter of confusion, Kongmin's distrust swinging from me to his own man, Taesuk hesitating, I moved. I didn't go for the drums. I lunged past Kongmin towards the open maw of the container they'd just opened. Scene 4417. My father's tomb. Inside, behind where the drums had been, I knew from a childhood memory of helping him stash tools, there was a gap in the inner wall. A hidey hole. Kongmin grabbed my arm, his grip iron. Enough. I twisted, a move born of alleyway scraps, and drove the heel of my palm up into his nose. Cartilage crunched. He reeled back with a choked cry. Taesuk dropped the lighter and went for his gun. Scarbrow was faster, his weapon already clearing his holster, but he wasn't aiming at me. He was looking at Kongmin, at Taesuk. His loyalties shattered, his secret exposed. The gunshot was enormous in the container yard cavern. It wasn't aimed at me. Tae-suk jerked, a dark flower blooming on his chest. He looked down, shocked at Scarborough. I was already inside the container, diving into the dark corner, my hands scraping against rust and rat droppings, finding the loose metal panel. I ripped it aside. Not just tools. Wrapped in oilcloth. A compact, snub-nosed revolver. My father's last resort. And a single clean ledger book. Another gunshot outside. A roar of pain, Kungmin. I shoved the ledger down the back of my trousers, gripped the revolver and spun. In the frame of the container doors, backlit by the sedan's headlights, Scarborough stood over a kneeling Kongmin who clutched his bleeding shoulder. Tae-suk was a motionless heap on the ground. "You stupid bitch," Scarborough spat at me, raising his gun. "You just signed your death with my name on it." He fired. The container wall beside my head sparked. I didn't think so. I raised my father's gun, a forgotten weight in my hand, and pulled the trigger. The recoil was a shock, jarring my wrist. The report was different. Deeper, older. Scarborough stumbled back, his shot going wide into the sky. He looked down at the dark stain spreading low on his abdomen, then at me with pure animal incredulity. I had shot a man. The ghost had drawn blood. Kongmin, seizing the moment, scrambled on the ground towards Tae-suk's fallen weapon. It was a three-way standoff in a triangle of betrayal and desperation. The heir, the traitor, and the ghost. And from the van I heard a scream, "Sujin." And then the sound of another engine. Smooth, powerful, approaching fast. Headlights swept across the pier, pinning us all in their glare. A long, black Genesis sedan. Not Kongmin's. The driver's door opened. An elegant, polished shoe touched the ground. Jae-suk, the billionaire dad, stepped out into the night, leaning on a cane. He surveyed the scene. His wounded son, his dead enforcer, his bleeding traitor, and me. The maid standing in her father's tomb, a gun smoking in her hand. His face showed no surprise. Only a deep, weary calculation. "It seems," he said, his voice cutting through the port's night whispers, "the ghost has teeth after all." The world narrowed to the four of us in the dome of headlight glare. The smell of blood and cordite mixed with the harbor stench. My father's gun was a live coal in my hand. Jae-suk took a few slow steps forward, his cane tapping on the asphalt. He ignored his son's pained cursing and ignored the dying gurgle from Scarborough. His ancient eyes were on me. "Put the gun down, girl," he said, not unkindly. It was an order wrapped in the velvet of paternal advice. "You've made your point. Violence is a language my family understands. You are now fluent." Kongmin struggled to his feet, clutching his shoulder. "Father, she's a rat. She killed Tae-suk. You let a maid with a grievance orchestrate this?" Jae-suk's voice cracked like ice. "You lost control of your own men. You were outplayed." He glanced at Scarborough. "By a ghost and a greedy fool." He returned his gaze to me. "The ledger and the recorder. Give them to me." It wasn't a request. It was the closing of a vault door. My mind raced. This was the reckoning, but not the one I'd envisioned. He wasn't here for justice or revenge. He was here for containment. I was no longer a loose thread. I was a live wire that had sparked a fire. He had to either cap me or harness me. "My parents' voices are in that recorder," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Their blood is on your books. You want containment? I want a name. The one who gave the order for Pier 7. Kongmin laughed, a wet, pained sound. "You think it was him? He doesn't get his hands dirty. It It was a middle manager. A dog. He's been fish food for years. The name, I repeated, the gun unwavering. Jae-suk sighed, a sound of profound inconvenience. Choi-young. Foreman was promoted to lieutenant. Ambitious. He saw your father as a rival. He gave the order. He was dealt with 6 months later for skimming profits. He tilted his head. Satisfied, the man who killed your parents is dead. The cycle is complete. It was a hollow victory. A pawn sacrificed years ago. The king and the prince remained untouched. Now, Jae-suk continued, extending his free hand. The evidence. It is a family business. You are not family. You are an employee who has overstepped catastrophically. But you are also a weapon. One that has proven unexpectedly sharp. I saw the calculation in his eyes. Kang Min was wounded and flawed, and his authority was shattered tonight. The old lion needed a new tool. A ruthless, unexpected one with nothing to lose but a past he already owned. You work for me now. Directly. Not as a maid. As a problem solver. You have a nose for betrayal. You have nothing to tie you down. No name, no history. He glanced at his son with cold disappointment. You will be my eyes where his has gone blind. The offer hung in the air, more vile than any threat. Become the very thing I hated. Enforce the silence that killed my parents. Wear their blood as a uniform. Kang Min stared at his father, betrayal etching deep lines in his face. You would replace me with this? I am replacing no one. I am adapting. Jae-suk's eyes never left mine. The gun, Mina. Or G1. Choose your name. Choose your future. In the trunk of my car is a bag. Passport's cash. A clean phone. You can take it and run. But you will run forever. Or you can stand here. Claim your inheritance of power. And never be a ghost again. The false escape. The gilded cage. He was offering me a seat at the table where my parents were having the meal. I looked at Kang Min, bleeding and furious. I looked at Scarborough, breathing his last in the oil-slick puddles. I looked at the open drums, my parents' legacy. I lowered the gun. But I didn't hand it over. I walked to the plastic drum, reached and past the moldering books, and pulled out the evidence bag with the digital recorder. I held it up. Then I took the slim ledger from my waistband. I walked towards you, Jae-suk, stopping just outside his reach. I placed the ledger in his outstretched hand. Then I lifted the evidence bag. And I pressed play. A crackle, then my father's voice, strained but clear, filled the silent pier. Jae-suk himself approved the diversion. The customs fee goes into his private foundation. The son, Kang Min, handles the muscle, but the old man keeps the books. He is the syndicate. Jae-suk's face turned to stone. I stopped the recording. I memorized the file names, I said quietly. Cloud storage. Dated emails. Set to release to 3 major outlets and the Financial Crimes Unit if my heartbeat stops. Or if I don't check in every 48 hours. A lie, a beautiful, desperate lie. But the truth in the recording sold it. I had just made myself unkillable. I dropped the evidence bag at his feet. You don't hire me, I said, the ghost of Lee Ji-won finally standing at her full height. You have a truce. I walk out of here. I disappear. You never see me, never hear from me. Your empire stands. Your son's pride is the only casualty. I met his glacial gaze. Or you can test my dead man's switch. And see how fast your world of glass and money turns to ash. The balance of power had shifted on a knife's edge. He wasn't offering me a job anymore. I was offering him a ceasefire. He looked at the ledger in his hand, then at the bag at his feet. He looked at his wounded, useless son. He saw the cost of my destruction written in digital code and headlines. A slow, grim nod. The only concession a king can give. Go, he said, the word tasting of gall. I didn't run. I walked backwards past the headlights towards the van where Sujin sat petrified. I kept my eyes on them, my father's gun still in my hand, until I reached the driver's side. Move over, I told her. She scrambled into the passenger seat. I got in, started the engine, and turned the van around, leaving the 3 men, the wounded, the dead, and the defeated, in the shrinking frame of the rearview mirror. We didn't speak. We drove out of the port back into the neon bloodstream of the city that belonged to them. At a quiet subway station I stopped. I took the cash from my maid's apron and the few bills I had and handed them to Sujin. Get lost for a while. You saw nothing. She took the money, her eyes hollow, and fled into the night. I drove the van to the banks of the Han River. I got out, took my father's gun and threw it, then the key from my drawer, into the deep, dark water. They were anchors to a past I could no longer afford. The ledger and recorder were gone. But the truth? The truth was in me now. Not as a weapon but as a weight. A silent, permanent companion. I didn't take the bag from Jae-suk's trunk. That was the final trap. To take his money was to become his creature. I walked away from the van, from the river, and from the ghost named Park Mina. Lee Ji-won was still a ghost too, but a different kind. One not hunted by the past but living silently alongside it. One who knew the exact price of a sunrise and knew she had for now paid it. The screen doesn't fade to black. It holds on a woman walking into the anonymous dawn, the skyline of her enemies at her back. She isn't free. She's in a forever ceasefire. And in this world, that's the only victory you get to keep. Drop your take below. Did she win, or did she just find a different kind of cage? If stories that live in the brutal, quiet aftermath are your kind of truth, the kind that stains, not just stuns, then tap subscribe. Let's keep navigating the wreckage together. I'm reading every single word you leave. This is where the real story begins.